Welcome back to another episode of Resume Wars. We look at two qualified resumes. We pick them apart nicely, of course, and we'll make sure that we find the best resume. Of course, as always, the names and identities have been changed to protect the innocent. With that being said, we've got Ben Savage versus Emma Stone. Ben Savage versus Emma Stone. So we're going to start off with John today. John, you had a chance to look at both resumes. What are your thoughts?
Actually, I kind of do like both resumes. Emma Stone's is a little bit easier for me to read. And, you know, when I pick a resume up and I read the giant paragraph right at the top, while I know that it kind of gives me a gist on what they're qualified of, it's a big block of text to read. And then there's a few other big block of text that are down in there that maybe could be bullet points. As far as Emma Stone goes, even though she does not have a whole lot of experience coming up from a front desk person to a director of sales, which is it's a great progression coming through something. There's a few things too on that one that I kind of would like to see a little bit differently from any standpoint. And as we talked about in the last episode, maybe it's a question for me to ask, but it also eliminates them when it comes to when you look at the job as director of market and sales for DreamWorks in Phoenix there, it says oversaw 3 hotels, all branded limited service and sales support for 2 additional hotels. I think it's vitally important to put the brands, whether it's DreamWorks, whether it's Easy A, whether it's, you know, whatever brand they are, I think it's vitally important to put that, because if we're looking at it as a recruiter, we're just going to say, oh, well, do they have that experience that we're looking for? And if it just says all branded, we might skip over that. Again, down further, it still says limited service hotels also. So when I look at Ben Savage, though, one thing really, really honestly sticks out. And to me, that is 5 pages of a resume. And not only 5 pages of a resume, but 5 full pages of a resume. A lot of text to read. It does detail out pretty well what they do and how they do it. It kind of leads to, it gives every aspect of their job. It almost is a job description in itself, and it does give the appropriate numbers. But 5 pages is very, very hard for someone to read. They're going to be tired by page 1 or 2. Now, maybe page 3, 4, and 5 don't really make that much of a difference because they might be from years ago. But some people do want that stuff. So to me, in this regard, format, ease of reading, and even the skill sets, I probably would go with Emma Stone on this one.
We got one Emma Stone. All right, Kip, what are your thoughts on Emma versus Ben?
So I will not go into too much detail of what John already said, which some I do agree with. But if you look at Director of Market Sales, if we go to Emma Stone first, you look at Director of Market Sales, there is one thing that I cannot tolerate, and that is any oversight in editing on a resume, especially one that's short as hers. Mm-hmm. From 2016 to 2018, she's currently overseeing 5 hotels. She would be overseeing 5 hotels, not currently overseeing it, because number one, it's in the past. And if you go to the first bullet point, oversee 3 hotels, all branded limited service. I don't know what limited service is, but I know what limited service is. So right. Not to be too critical, but I will say, if you're a director of sales and marketing and you're putting content out there, it is absolutely critical to make sure that you edit your document to a future employer. So for that reason alone, I love the format of Ben Savage. If he reduced his content, I love the fact that he's got the name of the hotel, he's got the dates. I love that format. And I love that he's got his accomplishments filled out right underneath that. But reducing that 5 pages down to 2, I'm glad you're very accomplished. What you may want to do if you're so accomplished, number one, make sure that it's a qualified accomplishment. And number 2, you may want to have a second page that details all your awards and accomplishments if it's taking up too much room on your resume. So for that reason, Emma Stone, I'm sorry. I'm not a huge fan on any typos. So that one's out.
Sean, it's a new year, a new me. You notice the spring in my step?
For me.
And Kip, sometimes detail is, it's the most important, right? So we do know that a misspelled word will get you knocked out quickly, especially something like that.
And in sales and marketing, for sure.
Right.
All right. Mr. Michael, what are your thoughts? We got 1-1 right now. Ben versus
1-1,
Emma.
huh?
1-1.
Well, I like page 1 and 2 of Ben's resume. I would chop 3, 4, and 5 off. There's no reason to go back 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely not. And with that, his formatting on page 5 compared to the date formatting on 1 and 2 are different. So he has the month and the year, and then on 5 he just has the years. So a couple things I think of. Can't you remember what happened back then? But I would just cut it off. Resumes should probably go back 10 years at the most. So if I pull those 3 pages off and toss them away and just go with 1 and 2, I have a pretty nice resume. Because under Wild Palms Catering, he's telling me in a sentence what he does and what his job title is and his accomplishments. So he could probably get some more data in there, at least for Wild Palms. But when you look at when he's at the White Dwarf and Director of Catering and Conference Services, he has the data there. So I like his. Visually, Emma Stone's is a nice, easy resume to look at and to read. You can tell that she is aggressive in growth. She starts as a server. 8 years later, well, actually 6 years later, she's up to a director of sales and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So that reminds me a little bit about my career. So that makes a personal touch. You know, within like 6 years, I went from like an HR file clerk to one of the youngest HR managers at a manufacturing company that they ever had. So she has the get-go to get there, and I think she's moving too fast.
Nan told me that it had to be me, only me. She was very specific on that point.
As Kip said, she has a couple spelling errors, and I think that's speed on her part. So
Right.
I don't necessarily knock somebody out for a spelling error. Heck, I just paid almost $1,000 to have my resume done, and I found 2 spelling errors in that after I had sent it off for interviews. and then they send it back to me with the spelling errors corrected. I'm like, gang. No need to send it back to me. I already corrected it after my interview told me. But I still went along in the process. So, and again, for her, I think her accomplishments or her job titles are there. I don't like to see an objective, but I kind of like to see that professional summary at the top. So if I was her, I would add a professional summary. Put the education at the back.
Again, we mentioned that in the last one. The education's at the top, and again, the date is there. So
yeah,
in this case, it doesn't. Well, it could still create bias because the bias is young, right? So
it is. And I hate to say it, one of the things that she could have against her is the name of her college could lead to bias too.
Right.
So I would move her education back to the end. You might have somebody who doesn't want to work with somebody of that faith, so move it to the end. You can't hide the school name, but move it to the end so it's not sticking out there.
Well, the one thing they could do, it might not, like just in that case, Arizona Christian University, maybe the
ACU.
Yeah, maybe it's ACU.
Mhm.
One thing before Chris talks, because I think we're 2-1 right now, is details, right? So again,
Yes.
there was details that were misspelled, and there are details that they're too long and the dates aren't always correct. So Chris, what do you have to say?
So we got right now we have 2 for Ben, 1 for Emma, and unfortunately for Emma, she's going to go down 3-1. She's not going to be like the Cavs in 2016 and come back from a 3-1. She is unfortunately going to be done. My reason for it actually has to do with the fact that apparently there's construction outside my office here on the beach. But no, what's happening here is I look at the top part of her resume, and then I look at the bottom part, and it looks like the formatting is off. Like the spacing is off between when you're the market sales
Oh,
manager.
yes.
And then you go down to page 2, and it's also drawn out at that point. So some points she's got the words close together, some points she doesn't. And I think to me it's almost like the little kid who is trying to make a 3-page paper into a 5-page paper, so they make the font extra big at that point.
I'm sorry, I just can't.
The other thing I noticed about her resume was server hostess production. All right, Pizza Joker, Phoenix, Arizona. Don't get me wrong, it's 8 years, it's great. When I look at the rest of her resume, what does that have to do with her job? I think that, to me, if someone wants to know more about her background, what she did, when she was in high school or in college, that's great. But if it doesn't really adhere to her hospitality background when it comes to the sales and marketing side of things, what's the point? It's almost like you're just trying to put something in there to fill space. So that's why I had to knock Emma.
Yeah. At her level, she could take hers down to 1 page.
All right,
All right,
well, you have
guys.
a winner, and that would be
Man,
Yep,
Mr.
that would
Savage.
be,
Savage.
looks like we've got ourselves, it's going to be Ben Savage. So Boy Meets World, Boy Meets Victory. So our buddy Ben will be joining us for further rounds. Gentlemen, I
Nice.
appreciate your help with this, and we'll look forward to seeing you for our next episode.